Thank you. My name is John Narmi, and my oldest sister, Kathryn Narmi Shudak, will be our guest speaker today. Kathryn is going to be 91 at the end of the month, and she worked at the Glen L. Martin bomber plant, where Offutt is, for 3 years, from 1942 to 1945. And she was to VJ Day.
Yeah.
She'll tell you about what happened on VJ Day. And so she spent 3 years of her life there, and she's really kind of mystified as to why, like a lot of other World War II veterans that came home and never talked about it or made a big deal out of it, she's really mystified as to why people would be interested in her story. But she was a real life Rosie the Riveter. She was a riveter. She worked on the production line, did the B-29, did the Enola Gay, that type of thing there. So without further ado, my sister Kathryn Shudak.
As John has already told you, my name is Kathryn Narmi Shudak, and I will be 91 years old. I am the mother of 6 children, the grandmother of 18 children, and the great-grandmother of 18 children. On December the 7th, 1941, on a Sunday afternoon about 1 o'clock, we were just ready to sit down to eat our Sunday dinner when a flash came over the radio. We didn't have TV at that time. That the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, and that there was a heavy loss of life and a heavy loss of the Pacific Fleet. At that time, I had a friend there, Clifford Shudak, who was aboard the cruiser Helena. Their ship was damaged and they lost about 20 men during the attack. We did not know for a few days afterward whether he was dead or alive, but about 10 days later the government sent a card that he was okay. Being an idealistic young woman of 19, I wanted to do something to help the war effort. And my first thought was to try to get a job at Hastings, Nebraska. At that time they had a munitions factory there. And I wanted to get a job there, but my father said no, it was too dangerous. Maybe a saboteur would come and blow it up or something, so I let that go by. In the early part of the summer of 1942, there was a piece in the paper, the Mount Brill paper, that there was going to be a representative come there to interview people that might be interested in doing defense work. He was coming from California and worked in the aircraft industry. I thought, well, that was something I might like to try to do. And so I went for an interview and thought that I would like to do it. We were going to be taught how to use tools, how to read blueprints, how to rivet and do things of that nature. My father was very, very opposed to me doing this. The first thing, he did not think it was a proper vocation for a young 20-year-old woman. And another thing he didn't like, if I got a job, I would be working with men. And he didn't like that idea. But anyhow, I persisted and I did take the training, and we went over. It was held at Tech High School in Omaha, Nebraska. And I went all summer long and learned the various things that I was supposed to learn to rivet and everything else. And in September, when the course was done, I went out to the Glen L. Martin bomber plant for an interview to put in an application for a job. I did not get hired. A few days later, a friend that I had met taking the training called me and said that there was a rumor that they would be hiring for me to come out. So I did go out, and I did get hired, and consequently, my citizenship was already verified when they hired me. And I was hired for 60 cents an hour, which was an unheard of wage just coming out of the Depression. I was making more money than my dad working on the railroad. And now I lost my job.
Well, just that you got hired and...
Well, I got hired, and then I was 60 cents an hour, and I was going to go to work in this small parts division, General Assembly, and I was to work from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. And they had a very good system at the plant where they provided rides for people, matched people with people like I lived in Council Bluffs. There were some people in Council Bluffs that worked at the plant, and they would match you up with that party. They would come pick you up at your house, take you to the plant, and bring you home in the morning. And I think we paid, I'm not sure, I don't remember if it was $1 or $1.50 a day for a ride, but the convenience was absolutely wonderful. They were mostly men, and they were very dependable. And so I worked then in the small parts division for probably at least a year, I think, and we just worked on small things that went into an airplane. I don't know what they were. And then they came to some of us and asked us if we would be interested in transferring to go out and work on the wing, rivet out on the wing. And we thought about it, and we decided, why not? It's something different. So that's where we went, and from then on, that's where I worked till the end of the war. During the war, they had severe rationing of everything: food, tires, shoes, anything that you could think of. And people had victory gardens, and if they didn't have room for a garden in their backyard, then they'd make a garden on their parking. And people were very good about anything that could be recycled was recycled. Grease or metal or anything that could be reused was recycled. And the people were very willing to do this. I don't know if they used the stuff or not, but it gave the people something to do. And they even sold victory stamps or stamps in the school for the school kids. You can buy bonds and so on and so forth. And during this shortage, the government had a communique out that the American women were going to have to exercise more and walk more because the rubber that they were using for the girdles had to be made into trying to do our bit. Also, like during the war, you could not buy any nylon stockings or anything of that nature. So if we were going to go out, we wanted to dress up, we painted our legs. And God forbid for rain. And then another thing that was in very short supply, one thing was bicycles, because everybody wanted to have a bicycle so that they could get around. And the other thing was lenses for people's glasses. And the reason that there was such a shortage of that, at that particular time, most of our lenses were being made in Germany, so consequently we weren't getting any lenses.
What was it? Go ahead.
You know, we rode with various people, and for a period of time, there were a group of us young women were riding together, and the driver had a red convertible, and we happened to be on the afternoon shift, and we were going down 13th Street on our way to work, and there were 2 dump trucks following us behind, and they were filled with good-looking young men, and they were waving at us, and of course we were waving back, and come to find out they were Italian prisoners of war. On our way to go work on a farmer's farm.
Kidding me.
I guess you call that fraternizing with the enemy.
How is the security at the plant?
Security was very, very strict. They had guards all over. You couldn't even get on the grounds before a guard inspected your car, and then he came onto the property, and then there were guards all over. Guards when you were going to enter into the plant, and there were always 2 guards together walking all around the plant all the time. I don't know what they were looking for, but that's what they were doing. And I mean, it was a strict, real strict security, and you could not get in. If you happened to forget your badge or something, you were not permitted to enter in onto the property whatsoever.
Did you have an inspection of your things on the way in and out?
Yes. They had a big cafeteria, but there were so many people. By the time you would get your food and everything, your lunch break would be over. We had 2 breaks of 10 minutes, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, and then a half hour off for lunch. And by the time you'd get your food, didn't have time to eat it, so a lot of people brought their lunch. And you had to have like a lunch box. And when you came into the plant, you had to open up your lunch box so that the guard could check to see what you had in that lunch box. And then when you left in the morning, they checked to see what was in the box again. And so that was, how that was handled.
Were those guards military or civilian?
They were civilian,
Okay.
yeah.
Were you there the day the B-25 crashed?
No. See, I always worked afternoons or nights, and I think that was about lunchtime, so I would not have been there, no.
Tell us about pants.
Yeah, what did you wear?
What about pants? Well, up until that time, women did not wear pants, period. I mean, you might wear them if you worked in the garden or something like that, but you did not wear trousers or pants. But then when we were working there, we had to wear pants because we're climbing around and everything, and so that's how the pants fad got started. And it was so comfortable. And you have to wear one of those girdles. Pull on your pants and away you go.
But now you worked as a team. You had a team partner.
Yes.
And you did what and your partner did what?
You had a partner. From the time I started to work there, you had a partner. And I was just lucky when I took my training at Tech High School. I met a young woman there. Her name was Connie Gurman. And she kind of took to me. She said I looked like a scared rabbit. So she was very nice to me. And when I went to work at the plant, at the small parts division, she was made my partner. And we were the partners during the whole war.
Wow.
I always used the rivet gun, and she always bucked the rivets. And that was our partnership. And she became a lifelong friend of mine.
Now, was there ever a buzz or a rumor about any special planes coming down the line towards the end of the war?
Well, there were always rumors going on and everything else, but I do not think that there was a rumor at that time, because at that time, I don't think anybody even knew that we had the atomic bomb at that time. So I don't think, there was all, like I said, there was always rumors going on, but I don't think that anybody had any actual know-how of it or anything else, whatsoever. So,
Was there any union activity in those days?
no,
No.
not there anyhow when I worked there, no. People were just so, the attitude is so different for people way back then. Anything that anybody could do to help the war effort, because everybody had a brother or a sweetheart or a husband or a cousin or somebody in the war. So everybody was more than willing to make any sacrifice, for the war. In fact, I had 2 neighbors that were both killed in the war. One was Bobby Scholsky, who lived 1 door down from us. He was killed in the South Pacific. And the other one was Bobby Huff. And the story that went around was that the ship, the Indianapolis, shipped part of the atomic bomb. And the Japanese, somehow or other, found out about it. They sunk the Indianapolis ship. And at that particular time, there was absolute radio silence whatsoever. They did not know that the ship was sunk. They didn't know anything else. And so consequently, those men were not rescued, and the sharks ate a lot of them. And after that, then they changed that ruling about silence, I guess. I don't know. But my neighbor was on that ship, and he never came home. He was just a young kid. Huss lived right behind us. That was 2 people right there. So when you run into that kind of thing, you are willing to do anything to try to help your country. You want to win, And England was really happy when we got in the war, because England was down and almost out. And they knew if they could get us started, we'd be a lot of help to them,
Do you have any kind of an alumni group that get together over all the years? Special group
What
of
do you say?
ladies?
Do you have any alumni group or any group of women or workers that get together ever?
I never even ever talked about it, because I don't know, it was just a phase of my life, and I got married and had children, and that was my life then. I didn't even think about it, And
Did you get
my
any,
incident
did you
during
get
the
any
war.
pay raise?
Pardon?
Did you get any pay raise during the war? What were you making when the war was over?
I don't think I ever got a pay raise. I don't know. I don't remember getting one. I started out at 60 cents an hour and probably stuck with it.
Well, tell them how much your dad was making on the railroad.
My dad was only making about, I think, 25 or 30 cents an hour working on the railroad. He was the engineer on the railroad. And here I'm making 60 cents an hour.
It's government.
So what happened when the war ended? What happened when the war ended? What happened on VJ Day?
Well, everybody went crazy.
Party central.
What happened to your job?
That was it. I was out of work. But I was glad.
So they ended your employment that very day.
I think they probably had skeleton crews to finish up, but I mean, the majority of us were out, gone, done, in tickle pink, to have the war over. I know we had a little private joke between my husband and me. At that time, of course, I was not married, and he got very few leaves during the war, because he was, after the Helena was sunk, he transferred to the battleship, the Indiana, and it was the first battleship of the Iowa class, and they laid the keel in 1939 for that ship, and he was transferred to that ship. So consequently, they were out all the time in the Pacific. But he did get a couple of leaves, and he came home, and we went to Omaha, and he was so surprised. They had SPs guarding the Douglas Street Bridge, on the bridge and underneath the bridge. And we always joked that he wanted to come home and guard the Douglas Street Bridge.
Ma'am, when you were on the airplanes you built, other than putting the rivets in the airplane, did you leave any calling card marked?
Did you leave any calling card or put your initials on anything that you
No.
ever built?
No, everything was so inspected, believe me, there would be nothing like that. Everything was inspected over and over and over again. And when I ride on a plane right now and I look out on the wing, I think, boy, I know what's holding this thing together. I can't hear him, John.
Well, I was just going to show you a picture of Kathryn as a younger. We'll leave these up here. Here are some mementos from World War II. You might explain what you
Well,
had.
what it is everything was rationed during the war. They had different kind of stamps, or I guess it was stamps, because I didn't do any of it. My mother did it all. And anyhow, like for meat and sugar and shoes, and I mean everything was rationed. And during the war they didn't make any copper pennies. They made some lead pennies.
Oh, yeah.
And this is
They
just
were
a couple of things.
using the copper.
Yeah, well, they were using the copper in the war, John.
Right. And then from 1942, this is her original employment slip.
Nice.
It says right up here, my citizenship is verified. And the reason of that was my nationality was verified because my father was Italian. My mother was full-blooded German, so those were the two Axis countries. And of course, they were both American-born, but that's just the way it was back then. Yeah. Probably now I could sue them, but...
You and the general were talking, the floor of the plant was not concrete. It was wood or something like that, wooden peg?
It was pieces of wood about that long and about that big, and instead of being laid this way, they were pounded in this way. And I guess that was to absorb grease or make it easier to walk on, or I don't know why it was that way, but that's how the floor was.
Well, do you fellas have any other questions for Kathryn? She was there, she lived it, she can tell you. I say she was there, she lived it, she can tell you.
I got one. I had read that they used little people, midgets and stuff, like the tail cones and that, because regular people couldn't get in. There are people like that in the plant here.
He had read that they used little people like midgets and the tail cones and stuff like that.
Not that I ever knew, no.
Not here.
But I've heard that also. I've heard that also.
How many people were working out there at the time? Do you have any idea?
Oh, there were hundreds, I would say thousands, yeah.
I think 3,000 at one time.
Yeah, there was a lot of, see, the plant ran 24 hours a day. They had 3 shifts, and so So that was that. And then when BJ Day came, Clifford Shudak was in Tokyo Bay, and we have a picture of him in a book, and he was sitting on, him and 3 or 4 other guys were sitting on a great big 16-inch gun, and they're looking down, and they see the Japanese signing the surrender, and they're up here on this big gun. And we have a picture of that in the book. So he's the only man that I know that had war from the very first day to the very last day. But when the war was over, they immediately transferred a lot of them by, do you call it buoy's perch or something, a share that goes across?
I think a bosun's chair.
What?
Bosun's chair?
I don't know. Anyhow, they transferred him from one ship to the other, and he came home, and he was dismissed and out of the service by September, in September. And so then on October the 16th, 1946, at 8 o'clock mass in the morning, I was married to Clifford Shudak. And out of that union came 6 children. And I was married for 52 years until 1968.
98.
98.
What did I say?
68, 98.
When Cliff died?
Yeah.
And he died very suddenly. He had a ruptured abdominal aortic aneurysm, and he died. Yeah, that was the end of that.
Larry?
I hope that, go ahead.
Do you recall how long it took from beginning to end to produce an airplane?
How long did it take to build one airplane?
I really don't know, because see, they work round the shifts. And everything I did, like I said to you before, everything had to be inspected and inspected and inspected and stamped, and I mean, it had to be perfect. Yeah. So I really don't know how long it took. I mean, this is round the shift.
50 minutes.
I hope that I have not bored you, gentlemen.
I've got a presentation of our local flight memorial coin. It's got the Daedalian logo on the one side. Volamus means in Latin, we flew and we fly. And on the back is the LeMay Flight 16 with the Strategic Air Command.
Thank you
I can
very,
present
very
that
much.
to you.
Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Flight Captain.
Mr. Provost Marshal.
I propose a toast to our honored speaker.
Thank you, gentlemen.
And General Ursler asked to say a few things to us also.
After he gets his picture.